financial problems, elder law, criminal law, tax problems, business matters, divorce, personal injury, bankruptcy, your life, your reality. Life is complicated. There is the law and there is reality. Welcome to Law and Reality, sponsored by THAV GROSS. Now here's your host, Ken Gross.
Welcome to this segment of Law and Reality. Today's topic is solving your tax problem now. Dun, 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 Brian Small.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here, and I love solving
We have
any
a
kind of
slightly
problem.
smaller crew than usual. Brian, Joe Frizard, myself, it's the three of us.
As long as, well, you know, there's famous trios in the world.
This is it.
This is hopefully we're not the Three Stooges, though.
Do you remember the Trio restaurant group?
The Trio restaurant.
There was a restaurant, the Trio. They had great ribs. They're 12 Mile and Northwestern.
I do not.
It was in the era of Bill Bonds. Do you remember Bill Bonds?
I do remember Bill Bonds.
Do you remember Bill Bonds?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so solving your tax problem now. We're going to hit 4 common tax problems, most common. 1, unfiled returns for many years. Income tax returns, payroll tax returns.
See it every day.
Returns that are filed, but you owe money. Number 3,
See that many hours a day.
levy on your wages or bank account.
All the time.
And number 4, IRS audit.
Not as common, but starting to get to be more prevalent.
Okay, so let's start off talking about unfiled returns.
File your returns. It's as simple as that.
How many unfiled returns people that have unfiled returns do you think there are?
Do I think there are? I would tell you that it's millions of people don't file returns.
The estimate that I found doing major Google research
Google research.
was
Google knows all.
10 million people.
10 million people per year?
No, there's 10 million people who fail to file their federal income tax returns. The problem with the information, though, the source was various websites of firms that are solving tax problems. I couldn't find it on irs.gov. They publish all sorts of statistics in terms of who files, who pays what percentage of the total tax compared to the rest of the population, but they don't publish a number as to what their estimate of unfiled returns are.
I can tell you this, based on my experience. Those people that have an extraordinary amount of debt and then come in to see us for a bankruptcy, it is many, many of them that have ignored filing their tax returns also. I mean, I would go so far as to say it's as high as 30% of the clients that walk through the door. They haven't...
Even if they've got wage income with withholding?
Yeah, they still haven't filed their tax returns.
Because they might have refunds coming.
This is true, but I mean, and the number of people that have gone more than 2 or 3 years without filing tax returns is growing also. There's this misconception out there that if you don't file your returns, they'll just leave you alone.
I think that's a combination of burying your head in the sand and then relying upon the misconception. Because if you don't file the first year, you say, when that happens, you say, I'll get to it. And then you don't get to it because there's no one beating the hammer to file the return. They're not calling you saying, Mr. Jones, where's your tax return? We're coming to get you.
Do you know what else the problem is? It's because it's gotten so expensive to use tax services to file your tax returns. Even though the tax return form has gotten a lot easier to fill out, there are so many people now that they walk in and go, I can't afford $400 to get my taxes
There's
prepared.
actually free software, but have you ever used it? Did you ever try it?
I have looked at it. It is not all good.
I did it once just to see how it would work. I did it for my kids' returns years ago when they were minor kids, and it took so long to do it going through the program that if I would have just filled out the form manually, because it was just wages, That was basically a 20-minute job, but I wanted to see how the program worked. The 20-minute job using the program was a 2-hour job.
Yeah.
I only did it once and said, this is ridiculous.
But it's gotten so expensive, and it's just one more thing people go, "Oh, I'm already tight for money. I don't have any."
All right, but key points. What's the worst thing about not filing your return?
The penalties.
25% increase in your tax.
How about jail?
Not likely.
But it's possible, especially if you haven't filed your tax returns for many, many years.
Not likely. If you're a movie star, a sports celebrity, a public figure, the son of a president, then it becomes a greater possibility. But for the most part, it's not likely. But there is a point in time where, first of all, the rule is the government wants voluntary compliance. So if you've gone 6 years without filing, as long as they don't come looking for you, and the worst thing that you can have when they come looking for you is 2 guys show up with badges. That's a bad sign. Okay. If you come to them and voluntarily file the returns before they start looking for you, there's a no prosecution philosophy in the government. I think there's an exception with that if you're a public figure, though. But what happens is you bury your head in the sand. You go 1 year, then the second year you go, I haven't gotten any notices. I'll get to it next year. Now it's the third year. Now it's the third year, and basically you're at this point. You're worrying about it, but you're ignoring it. You're losing sleep over it. And then you're saying, even if I go to do it, I don't even know where the records are. I can't do it. Now it's 5 years, now it's 6 years. And now you're getting to the point where you hear about someone else who goes to jail, or you hear a problem, and you're losing sleep, and you're saying, somehow I got to resolve the problem. Well, the truth of the matter is, it is the easiest problem of all problems to solve. If you haven't filed, we contact the government and we get transcripts which will show us what your income was on any reported income, 1099s, W-2s. If you had expenses, if you have records, we use them. If not, we estimate. You're allowed to estimate. Just because you don't have the expense records doesn't mean you can't claim the deduction. If you get audited, you might have to fight a little bit, but my example is this. Truck driver. Independent truck driver. He owns a truck. We'll take a break.
Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call THAV GROSS.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call THAV GROSS today, 888-235-HELP. Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call THAV GROSS.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call THAV GROSS. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP. Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Pat was recommended by a friend who insisted that we really needed a trust. And he said, I know somebody who will do a good job for you.
At Samasco Law, we deal with estate planning and trusts every day.
We had excellent service from Samasco Law. Any questions we had were addressed. Our estate is in order, and it had been set up so well that nothing needed to be done. I would just highly recommend Samasco Law.
You can't work. You have to deal with pain and stress. Worse yet, our system for applying for disability benefits seeks to deny you the benefits you're entitled. Jeff Kirschner is an expert in obtaining disability and workers' compensation benefits for his clients. You need to call Jeff before you apply or after you're denied to get the benefits you deserve. 888-235-HELP. 888-235-HELP. If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
THAV GROSS specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call THAV GROSS.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call THAV GROSS today, 888-235-HELP.
All right, so the truck driver. Here's your classic example. Okay, a guy owns a truck and he drives every single day all across the country. But he has no gas records, he has no oil records, he has no records of anything that he's done. But he does know that he's driven all over the country. Is he allowed to claim a deduction for the miles and for the gas and the oil and estimate it? The answer is yes. And if he doesn't have the records, we estimate it. Now, I once had an audit on that. And the guy came to me after the audit was over. The IRS agent denied all the deductions that were taken on an estimated basis. And they issued what's called a 90-day letter, which says either you accept this deal or you have to go to tax court to fight the case, to petition the tax court to fight the audit. So I said to him, we're going to tax court. This is what it's going to cost me. I said, it's not going to cost you nearly the $120,000 that they're after you on the taxes because they've denied all your deductions for 3 years. We file the tax court petition. It goes to appeals. I talk to the appeals agent and I say to him, he's a truck driver. Look at his income. He wouldn't have gotten paid by all these companies if he wasn't driving the truck. They allowed us to estimate the expenses. We resolved the case quickly. Maybe his fee was $5,000 against a $120,000 tax bill.
Because logic prevails, and even the IRS accepts logic. It has to
Auditors don't always accept logic.
No.
But appeal officers
yes,
do.
They do.
And district counsel does when you're in tax court.
Because logic makes sense. They don't want to go up in front of a judge and trying a case claiming that he just fictitiously made up all the miles that he drove, even though he put 100,000 miles on his truck. He didn't have any maintenance.
He had an odometer.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Right.
And he's not driving the truck when he gets home at night to go to McDonald's to pick up a burger.
And he filled up his car, actually. He filled up the truck with air because it was one of those new air cars. It works, right? You know, I mean, logic prevails and rational people come up with rational results.
But it seems as though we talked about the audit in this case just as an example. But it's an example of two things. It's an example of you can estimate those expenses when you have the unfiled return. If you get in the audit environment, just so that you know what happens is you get audited. The auditors are difficult sometimes. They like to deny expenses. If you don't have the perfect book of all of your mileage, if you don't have all the receipts in a perfectly logical order, which some people do, you do that, you give them the receipts, they do the audit, you should come out fine. But if you don't have the receipts, the auditor may just go 0, 0, 0, and then he hands you a report and he says, I need you to sign and accept this. And if you do, you're accepting his findings when he's denied all of your expenses, and now you've got a big liability. Don't do that. Don't do that. Before that happens, you bring it to us, and we look at it and say, can we do better by fighting it? If the answer is at the end of the day he denied all your deductions and you owe $1,500 in tax, I'm going to tell you I'm not going to do better, because I might be able to reduce the $1,500 to $100, but it's not worth it if it's going to cost you $3,000 to do that.
But if it's $15,000,
Yes, and
or
then it's
$30,000,
and it's going to cost you $2,000-$3,000 to reduce it. By all means, you fight it. Don't accept the report from the auditor. That's the key. Unfiled returns. What's the solution? File them. That's simple. Now, returns are filed, but you owe taxes.
So, remember,
Next big problem.
It's legal to owe the government money. It's not legal to not file. And once you've filed, you have all sorts of solutions that are out there that are available to you.
First one, your favorite. Are taxes dischargeable in bankruptcy?
Yes. Period. That's it. However, there's some rules that go with it. In order for an income tax to become dischargeable in bankruptcy, it had to have come due at least 3 years ago. It has to have been filed for at least 2 years, and it can't have been assessed in the last 240 days. If you meet that criteria, subject to about 65 little exceptions that we have to go through and double check on, your income taxes are dischargeable in bankruptcy.
So it's 2023. In April of 2024, at that point, you would be able to, assuming you filed your return April 15th of
2020
3 years
was
earlier.
due in 2021. In next April,
Those are dischargeable.
2020 becomes dischargeable potentially.
So if you owe
21,
taxes
22, and 23
from
aren't.
18, 19, and 20,
Or 12, 13, 14, 15.
you need to, you come in here, we analyze what's the best way to take care of the taxes. Would a bankruptcy work for you, and is that the smart play? Or are there other arrangements of how we can get rid of the tax? And what's the other big way that we get rid of tax?
Well, the offer and compromise. The offer and compromise is the object of it is to settle your tax debt for quote unquote pennies on the dollar. And you can owe $800,000 to the IRS, and if the mathematical formula works out, you might only have to pay $100 to get out of that tax debt.
The key to the whole program is it is a government program. A lot of times you hear these commercials, they call it the Fresh Start program. Who named it that? Actually, the government did. Okay, it's a great program if you qualify. The amount of tax you owe does not play into it.
No, it's really the assets that you own and the income that you make, subtracting off the allowable expenses that the government says you're allowed to have. It's similar to qualifying for a bankruptcy. You go through the same investigation, and we determine whether or not a bankruptcy or an offer and compromise or some other collection alternatives might be available to you in the tax world.
Let's take an example after the break.
Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP. You can't work. You have to deal with pain and stress. Worse yet, our system for applying for disability benefits seeks to deny you the benefits you're entitled. Jeff Kirshner is an expert in obtaining disability and workers' compensation benefits for his clients. You need to call Jeff before you apply or after you're denied to get the benefits you deserve. 888-235-HELP. 888-235-HELP. If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
THAV GROSS specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
Time for announcements. I want to announce THAV GROSS has opened a new office downriver in the Horizon building on Eureka Road. So now we're in Flint, downriver, and also our home office in Bingham Farms. Remember, you can always come in for a free consultation. You can do it by Zoom conference, in the office, any way that works best for you. Just call 888-235-HELP or go to the website thavgross.com to sign up. Debt issues, tax issues, estate planning issues, business law issues, elder law issues with Pat or Kelsey, disability issues with Jeff Kirshner. Again, sign up at lawandreality.com or thavgross.com or just call 888-235-HELP. Also, if you go to the website, you'll see there's free reports. Resolving Tax Problems, The Real Solutions by Jeff Linden and myself. Bankruptcy, Is It Right for Me by Brian Small. How to Save Your Home from Foreclosure. Business Formations, Loans and Grants for Small Businesses in Detroit and Michigan. And The Retiree's Guide to Social Security by Pat Samasco. I want to thank our sponsors, THAV GROSS, Samasco Law, Kirshner Law. Now back to the show.
Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call THAV GROSS.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call THAV GROSS today, 888-235-HELP.
I was married for 57 years before my husband died.
Samasco Law had established a trust for them before this happened.
There's so much to do in the beginning, but after about a month, you're kind of alone.
We deal with estate planning and trusts every day.
If you continue to have good support and know that your finances and your estate is in order, that's one thing that's so comforting. I would just highly recommend Samasco Law.
Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call THAV GROSS.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call THAV GROSS. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP. Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
All right, we're back. All right, offer and compromise example. I don't own a home. I have no savings at all. I live paycheck to paycheck.
Which is a
I
considerable
make-
portion of the
I'm married. I have
people in
2
the United
kids, and we make $75,000 a year.
You're probably going to be able to get out from under your tax obligation for $100.
I owe $10,000 in taxes.
I don't care whether you owe 10,000 or 10 million.
I owe $100,000.
I just said I don't care. It doesn't
Okay.
matter.
I
That's
don't want.
a-
I
that
just want to make
scenario-
sure you don't care or it doesn't matter, because I don't
doesn't
care
matter.
whether you care.
It-
I care
it
about
doesn't-
whether I get on my tax.
It doesn't matter
Okay.
how much you owe. What matters is how much you make versus how much you are allowed to
Change
spend.
the facts. Same thing, but I have $50,000 in my IRA,
Okay, so now take the
and I owe
$100.
$10,000 in taxes.
Okay, so your offer in compromise doesn't make any sense to file at all, because your offer is going to be paying the $10,000.
They're going to say they'll give you a 30% discount on your $50,000 IRA. Why? Because if you cash it out, you got to pay the tax on it. So if you had a $50,000 IRA, if you owe $35,000 or less in taxes, they're going to take the money out of the IRA to pay your taxes. That's not your solution.
But switch the facts just slightly. You still have that $50,000 IRA, but you owe $500,000 to the IRS.
then it's a good deal.
And otherwise, if you didn't have that IRA, your offer would be $100. Now your offer is the $50,000 IRA less the taxes, so about
Plus
$35,000 plus $100.
Right.
It's still a good deal to pay that to get out of a $500,000 liability.
I've got $100,000 equity in my house.
But I was about to say, except I probably could have put you in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, gotten rid of the tax debt, and still let you keep that $50,000 IRA.
So the key there is, and this is important, if you come to us because we do tax problems, Brian, myself, Jeff Linden, that's the solution on the tax end, but we also do bankruptcy. So what's the mantra? Get out of debt at the least cost in the fastest possible way. That applies to tax debt, credit debt, all debt. If bankruptcy is a better solution, you go that way. If bankruptcy doesn't work, then you go offer and compromise. If bankruptcy doesn't work and offer and compromise doesn't work, then what do you do?
Well, we have a possibility of what's called an installment agreement. And an installment agreement could be $10 a month. It could be $100 a month. Sometimes there's different IAs.
It depends on how much you make, or it's an automatic 72-month plan, if you can afford it.
72-month pay the tax in full plan, or there's also a plan that can run as long as 10 years, but it's based on what you can afford. So if you can only afford $50 a month and you owed $400,000 in taxes, you still only have to pay $50 a month.
And not only that, if you can't afford to pay anything, we can get you what's called currently not collectible, which is reevaluated every 2 years, where you actually pay nothing. If you can document you don't have the income less the allowed expenses to pay anything back. And the feds, believe it or not, when you have representation, are reasonable. More so than the state. If you have two choices between getting rid of a liability first, the state tax gets paid first because they, all due respect, Governor, they are miserable compared to the feds. I'd much rather have a federal IRS issue to deal with than a state. If we have to deal with it, we have methods. And bankruptcy is still dischargeable.
Absolutely. So I know we're running out of time, but I just want to say, for those people who have reached the point where they're retired and they think that they can't solve their tax problem because they're living on Social Security, you're the perfect person to come in and we can solve your tax problem. I see so many seniors right now that are in tax debt.
Very good point. One other one in the last few seconds, because we listed it as a topic. If you get a levy on wages or on your bank account, we can get them released, but there's a key factor. You must act immediately when you get notice of the levy and come in so that we can get the payment stopped before it's released to the government. Once it's released, you're not going to get it back. You have to capture it before the employer releases it or before the bank sends them the money. That's a wrap. Have a great week. We'll be back next week with Law and Reality.